Okay, welcome all to the September 4th meeting of the Dudley Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. Yeah, I know, it was, surprised me. As we begin, as we have to advise everyone, this meeting is being recorded. We begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, last month we did the reorganization, but we held off on the position of clerk till this month. Does anybody have a, no, I can't take it. Anybody want to take the position of clerk?
I nominate Sean.
I'll second it.
Okay,
It's only if Jen's not here to take notes. That's all.
speaking of which, hold on a second here.
I tried to nominate her last time because you weren't.
Record.
They wanted to wait for you to be here.
Okay, now we're recording on that, recording as well. Our administrative assistant is on much earned vacation, so she will take her, do the minutes off of a recording. No motion's been made and seconded for Sean Bowes for the position of clerk. Anyone else?
I'm gonna open for discussion because we're gonna ask him if he wants it first. Sure. Okay.
All right, we didn't want, okay. Okay, motion's been made and seconded, and position's been accepted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, the minutes for August 7th, 2024.
Chairman, I make a motion we accept the minutes of August 7th as written.
Second that, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, Bob, you want to second it?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Matt Abrams, indirect. Much anticipated indirect report.
So, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to hand
Yep, sure.
out the latest.
Sure, like I said, I took a copy because I was here early.
So you have one.
I have.
This is courtesy of Olivia. She really helped me out with this today. I was on the road, not able to print. Thank you. You can take one too. I'll go next. Yeah, so thank you to Olivia. She really helped me out today with these printouts. Before you kind of dive too deep into what you're looking at there, I can maybe just talk real briefly about what you're looking at, and then we can get into details if you want. So as you know, we've been working on an indirect cost study for this board as well as the town. And we started this a few months back. I was before this board, not last meeting, I think the meeting prior to that, so the July meeting. I gave you an update at that point. We were kind of at the beginning stages of the study at that point. Since then, we've done a lot more work, and the papers that are now before you are the results of that work, also the latest and greatest, but it is not the final version. We are getting close though. So I've worked closely with town staff, also with the support of Jen, over the last few weeks to make progress and get to the point we are today. So when I say work closely with town staff, here's what I mean. Asking them questions about the work that they do, trying to understand that, trying to quantify it if possible, and even leaning on them to put together figures for me if they're willing and able to do that. And we've had some good discussions, and I was able to put together what I consider to be I don't want to say very close to the final, but we're getting close. I think we could probably get a draft together over the next, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks, based on where we are. And the reason why I say that is just because we're going to have a little bit more back and forth with some of the departments to make sure that everyone's comfortable with what we've put together. And I also have not yet met with the town administrator to get a good feel from him over where we think things should be. And when I say we, it's like, I look at it as a collaborative effort, not just me saying this is what it should be, but having their input as well. I'm meeting with them on Friday. I'm meeting with John and with Olivia on Friday. So we should have a better feel for the town administrator after that. But everything else before you, I believe, is the result of work that we've done working with these different departments over the last few weeks. So I feel like it's in pretty good shape, but we're not quite there yet. We're close. And knowing that town meeting is coming up, I want to see what the town administrator thinks about this, but we're, I guess, trying to, if we can, finalize this before town meeting so a vote could take place if that was the will of the town to get indirects into there. The reason why I say that is because initially I was under the impression that there was going to be an FY25 indirects number for water and sewer based on the usual methodology that's used in town. And a recent comment from the town treasurer made it seem like they were kind of waiting to see if the results of the study could be used instead. So I will get that firmed up with the town administrator over the next few weeks, or I'm sorry, when I meet with them on Friday. But that may be the goal, to try and get this wrapped up just prior to town meeting. So with that, I can take questions, or if you want, I can walk you through where we are from a little bit more detailed, whatever your preference is, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Why don't you go ahead and, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I looked real quick on my phone there when it popped up. This is based off the water sewer budget, this is the town's budget.
We use budgetary figures for the cost to include, yes, if that's what your question is.
But the percentage of what's charged to the water and sewer is based on,
Okay, I think I see what you're saying. What we did was, for each department that we felt should have an allocation, there was a discussion that took place to understand what they did, and we would determine some percentage to use, but it wasn't always based on that budgetary method that I talked to you about last time. We've shifted away from that. So it was based on a metric if we could do that. So for example, you may remember last time we had the town treasurer go through the list of tasks for that department and provide hours worked for all tasks, and then a breakdown of what was water and what was sewer. So we could get a percentage based on hours worked for the town treasurer. We talked to the town accountant and offered up that template for her to use as well if she wanted to do that, and she felt like that was the best way to do it for the accounting department as well. So the accounting department has since submitted a sheet just like the town treasurer did, and we have included the results of that in the analysis here. So that puts both the town treasurer and the town accountant based on an hours worked basis, which is, I feel like, a good metric to use if you can get to that level. And they were willing to do that for us, which was great.
you're playing devil's advocate, but who's saying the hours work? They're saying what they did?
They're saying it,
Is there any
yes.
justification of what they're saying? Or is it just a number you know what I'm saying? How do we justify to our users if they told us 13% of their day is water sewer?
So it's not, the list actually has the task work, so it's a little bit more specific than just saying 13%. So you or anyone could go through what they've put together and, see if it passes the smell test. But you're not there watching what they do. I'm not there watching what they do. So, your point's valid in that regard, but I'm willing to take them at their word because they know what they do. But I don't think anyone's trying to
We
be
have to have a
dishonest.
certain amount, we have to have a certain amount of trust, I get that, but
Yeah.
why don't you go ahead
Yeah.
and present, and then we can,
Sure.
we can, if we need to.
So I'll start with that
Speaking of
first
the-
page and just go downward, but there is backup behind that on more detailed sheets if you wanted to get into them. And also understand one other thing. The printout before you is 20 pages long. When I got to the point where I was ready to print it, I realized, okay, 20 sheets is probably too much. So I am going to be working on a new layout that's going to tighten that up a little bit. So the next version will be less paper, more direct than what you're looking at, but it will have a similar layout. All right, so the accounting department is the first line. So I'm looking at the summary sheet, which should be your first sheet on that packet.
Okay,
Yep. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about each going downward, and we can get into more behind the scenes if you want. So for the accounting department, I just mentioned what happened there. This was an effort that took place over the last week. I met with the new town accountant, told her what I was trying to accomplish with this study. She took that template that the treasurer used, went through, met with the former town accountant who retired very recently, and they produced a list of their tasks, and total, water, sewer, produced a percentage at the bottom, just like how the town treasurer did. And if you want to review this, that sheet is part of your packet. It's at the very back of the packet. The accounting sheet is there. So the results of it, completely, this was something she sent to me. We haven't even discussed it since then. I'm just using it. But you can see, if you look at the comparison to the prior version of the indirects, the allocation went from 11% down to 6.88%. So that was, and that was, I don't even think she was aware of what the percentage was prior. She may have been, I don't know. But the results of what she put together came in at a lower percentage than what has historically been used in the town over the last few years. So I'm planning on using that unless, I hear otherwise. That's the plan right now. The assessors very early on said that the assessors does very little, negligible for water sewer. So we've carried that at 0% ever since we started the study. And you can see that's a savings there because there was an allocation in the last version. The highway department, we're doing very similar calculations for the highway department now as was done prior. What was done prior was an allocation related to the buildings and grounds staff, because there is certain maintenance that the buildings and grounds staff does for the municipal building here, and water sewer department has its office here in this location. So there has always been an allocation for the highway department for that reason. So things like mowing the lawn, I heard that there's trash and cleanup that takes place, and that benefits everyone that's here at the municipal complex, including them. So there should be a small allocation there. We're using 2%.
Okay, go ahead.
The costs have gone down a little bit. The reason why is because I took some of the, no, it could be because we were including, the town was including the assistant prior, and that position is currently vacant. That would be my guess as to why it's gone down. But the assumption then would be that if they fill that position, it would go back up in future years. For HR, actually there's no HR department anymore, so we're not carrying anything in our number. MIS, Amanda, I did work closely with Amanda over the last week or so, maybe a little bit longer, to understand what she does. She splits her, besides the work that she does for meetings like this one, she splits her time evenly between the highway department and MIS. So we've included half of her salary for the MIS allocation, and we've also included certain expenses in the MIS budget that...
What's her title? You said MIS, what's it?
I am not aware of what her exact title is.
Okay, and I'm not sure, but I thought that position was all being paid for by cable rates.
Though I learned that the work that she does for the meetings, her hourly wage associated with her meetings, the work that she does for the meetings, is paid by cable.
Okay,
But the work that she does for highway and MIS is not, is paid out of the general fund budget. I forget exactly which department, but it's definitely in the general fund budget.
okay.
So, but we did spend some time diving a little bit deeper on the MIS budget, because there are certain line items in there that have a little bit higher costs. One is I think it's OpenGov, which is, I think a permit application thing.
That's the e-permitting process.
Yes.
I
So,
believe that was called out under the town administrator as well.
so we got a little bit away from the way that the buckets of expenses were done in the past, if this is what you're referring to, Mr. Chairman. And now we're actually focused on like the true department. So any true MIS costs, anything that's in the MIS budget, we put under MIS, because that made sense to me. So, like, for example, some of the MIS costs I know were not part of the MIS allocation in the past. It's actually the ones we're talking about right now. I think maybe GIS was in there. There might have been something else. It was part of a different bucket. Now I moved them into MIS because it's part of the MIS budget. So that's why you see the MIS numbers go up a little bit. For that reason, I'm including more costs in there. But it's another reason why some of the other costs are going down, because they're not being included in other buckets. They got shifted. So for the OpenGov, what I learned was, and this was the recommendation of Olivia, was to contact Amanda Jacobson, who works in building, because Amanda should have a good feel for how much water sewer uses the OpenGov e-permitting application. And I was told that basically they don't use it. There have been 3 permits out of thousands. I think it was 1,200 or in one recent year. So to me, that was negligible, so we zeroed out the OpenGov. So if you look at this MIS line, see how it says variable in red?
Yep.
That's why I put
Well,
variable,
this is
because
okay, yep.
because that is what, it wasn't a consistent percentage for the different things that we allocated for MIS. For example, OpenGov was 0. GIS, I put at 0, because water sewer has its own GIS costs. So it's not gonna tap into the costs that are at the town level. That was another 0. But the other expenses, I believe we did include, so all the other MIS expenses that are kind of shared by, sorry, I misspoke. I also asked, I believe Amanda Gage, for the licensing breakdown, because there's a line item for Microsoft 365 licenses, and to try and understand how many of those licenses belonged to water sewer, and the answer was 11 or 12 out of 100 something. So I use that as a percentage to allocate.
12.
All the board members.
Each board member has one, as well as each staff member has one.
Okay, there's only one staff member that uses a computer.
We have emails though.
Oh, yeah,
I have
all right.
one, Brian has one.
Right. Thank you.
Jen has one.
So that was allocated a little bit different, but everything else then was put into a bucket, including Amanda's salary, and allocated at 5%, because Amanda said that's how much time she spends on water sewer stuff, 5%. Okay, so that MIS is a little bit more going on there, but I think we covered it. Selectmen, we've always been carrying at 0% ever since we started the study, because we were told that they don't really do a whole lot for water sewer, if anything at all. And that's, you can see that there was an allocation historically for that. Town admin, there's a little bit of a change there. That's the biggest change in the other direction. But again, I mentioned this in my opening comments, we have not yet met with the town administrator. I don't know what's gonna come out of that meeting. But for now, we're carrying the budgetary methodology, which was mentioned at the beginning. That was what we were using for a lot of the departments when I last met with you. The thinking there is, if you think about the town administrator and what that department does, they oversee the entire town, budgetary stuff, meetings, all departments. So we were thinking, okay, well, maybe there's gotta be some way to represent their time and effort for each department. What's a good way to do that? I mean, maybe we do it based on time if they can do it. I don't know if that's gonna be possible. So for now, I'm just carrying the budgetary methodology
Okay.
until we have that discussion. So that will be an
Discussion on
update.
that line item, and we've got some, I've got at least have some discussion. We only saw this at, 3 o'clock this afternoon.
No, I understand, and I apologize,
It's
Mr.
gonna take
Chairman.
some- Yeah, it's gonna take some time to
Yeah.
digest it.
Yes, of course, and I wish I could have gotten it to you sooner.
Sure, it is-
But
it is
we've
what
been
it is.
actively working on it up until
Sure.
today, so, and we will be actively working on it, tomorrow and the next day too.
Okay.
And included in that line, like the town administrator, for example, total 16.51% at $61,785. So that equates to $374,227 a year.
Yes.
So that's, just so everybody understands that number, it's coming from his salary plus his retirement, plus insurance, plus every expense associated with
Plus
it.
the assistant, plus the secretary.
Yep, so this would be a good segue, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. Maybe turn to page, I think it's page 10 in your handout.
Okay.
Can you tell me when you get there if it says town administrator at the top?
Page 9.
Page 9.
Page 9. Yep.
All right, so I'll quickly walk you through. This is kind of the detail tab that feeds into that other tab we were just going over a second ago.
Sure.
A lot of detail here on, at the very top of it says, so this was interesting. That very top section, Jen had located a prior study that was done
Yes.
in 2001,
Yep.
forwarded it to me.
Mhm.
So I figured, okay, let's quickly go through it, and maybe just to throw into this workbook, the work that I've been doing, everyone can see what was the results of that study. So the first thing jumps out at you, 2.5% was what the town, the administration department's allocation was set to as a result of that study. Now that study was focused on water only. There was no sewer component, so keep that in mind, but 2.5%.
Back then, the departments were separate, and that was done for the
Okay.
water department.
Okay, makes sense. The next section shows the results of questions that were asked initially to kick off this study. Basically, what does your department do? There's a lot of detail there. This
Mhm.
came directly from the town administrator. You can review that if you want. But it excuse me. But you can see there that there's a decent amount of work or decent amount of tasks that are involved. Excuse me. Going a little bit further down, the next section, the next box has the current methodology. You can see that it is currently this department is currently being allocated 2.5% water, 2.5% sewer.
Okay.
The next section is what I'm calling the recommended methodology. Now, this is not final. As you know, I'm going to meet with the town administrator on Friday. But if the budgetary methodology were to be used, those percentages are what would be used. And then, as one of the commissioners just mentioned a moment ago, backed into that $374,000 number that got you to the allocations that were presented on that initial sheet we were reviewing together. So to show how we got to that 374, you just have to go down a little bit further, and this might be on the next page, probably on the next page.
It is, it's on page 10.
Okay. So the top box has the salaries and benefits for each of the employees that are in the department. And as one of the commissioners just mentioned a moment ago, this must include salaries, benefits, and you can see that it does. Okay, for each of the people in the department, under the thinking that the entire department is going to do these tasks. So they're all being included. Okay, and then down at the bottom, this was the results of reviewing the town budget with Olivia very recently. We talked about what expense line items in the budget for each department makes sense to include. Basically, are these expenses related to townwide functions that would benefit water sewer?
Just a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Why are the percentages different between water and sewer?
because
It's based on the budget.
it's based on the budget, so the water budget is
Water
higher
budget's
than the sewer budget.
significantly higher than sewer.
Okay.
Okay, I guess the questions that jump out to me, we pay for our own legal. You know, if we use legal, we pay for it.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
Vacation buyback, is that for all town employees
Yes, it is.
other than our own? Because we pay our own, obviously. And so they worked HR expenses into that office. I just, looking at what they included in what services, a lot of those services we pay for ourselves. For example, IT services are mentioned here. We pay a portion of the Vadar service, which is used for bookkeeping. We pay for bill processing. That we use, they contract out for a local company to fold and process all of our bills. We pay for it.
Okay, but you're referring to, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, you're referring to the description of what the department does right now, like the write-up?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
So that there are a lot of things, and it says utility bill payments. We pay our own utility bills, other than what,
For this building.
other than paying for the,
right,
and we're paying a percent of the expenses as under town hall. So it's just, there's some
Double dip.
it looks like there's some there could be some double dipping.
okay,
Or double, not double dipping, but double, it's being allocated in multiple places.
right. Okay. Wait, Mr. Chairman, a moment ago you said you pay for your own IT services, is that?
Well, some of them. It's like Vadar, which is I guess is the biggest.
Billing software,
The billing software.
we already pay a percentage.
We pay a percentage of that.
I assume that's in your budget, is that?
It's in our budget.
Okay,
It's in our general expenses line item.
okay,
And then when bills get processed, they get printed off, come out of the computer, they get printed onto a piece of paper, they get sent out to someone else to send them, to mail them out.
Yeah.
Or they may be printing them out, I don't. So we get a bill quarterly for that. It's,
okay,
not a small bill, but it's not huge either.
right,
That's just some of the things that it seems that are being included in there aren't really,
Well,
we have bills as well.
And I would agree with that because, here we're saying things that we've already allocated in other lines here for the town hall. And we're saying that they land in the town administrator here according to their narrative, so.
Right. So it's just not sure how that will play into the conversation on Friday. You've taken a straight budgetary line, our budget is, the water department is 10% of the total town budget.
right.
So 10% of the cost, cut down the middle.
10% of the costs that are presented on this sheet. yes.
Represent,
Yeah.
yes.
So it doesn't include their entire budget, it's just what we put in here?
Right.
But yes,
So
it is
there
10%.
There may be some, and it depends on what they have to say, I guess, as well.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so I think, Mr. Chairman, to satisfy your concern over double dipping, as we'll call it, it's gonna make sense at some point.
Right.
Maybe with Jen or someone who's knowledgeable of the budget, whether that's Olivia, Jen, or maybe both of them, to go through the expenses that we are including
Right.
and make sure that these are not things that are already being paid for out of the water sewer budget. I think Jen would probably have a pretty good handle on that.
Jen will have a very good handle on that.
So for example, like that table at the bottom, Olivia and I went through these things, she thought we should include them, but I wanna make sure that Jen agrees with that, so.
Sure.
When Jen's back, I'll make sure that I schedule some time with her on this.
Okay, so the town administrator, all right?
Okay, so back to the main sheet.
Yep.
The treasurer number I believe has not changed since you last saw it, because that template, what was filled out, the tasks performed and time spent, has not changed. Now, I know that when we met 2 months ago, there was a question from Jen, questioning whether the processing of payments task was reflective of the busy time, right around when bills go out and payments come in, or quieter time. And she wanted me to ask that of the treasurer's department. I have asked that, I haven't gotten the answer yet. So I'm gonna have to follow up on that. But that could be probably the only potential change on the treasurer's side. And you can see on the treasurer's side, water goes down, but sewer goes up.
And considering that the sewer billing is considerably smaller than the water billing, and and it's basically, it's the same bill. It's one, you know, it is two departments, I get it, but by this methodology, it looks like basically 40% of their time is spent on water and sewer combined. I think that might be a little high, but we'll see how they justify it.
There's not separate bills for sewer. So if somebody gets a water bill, they get a sewer bill, it's the same bill.
One balance due, not two separate balances. on
Right,
it.
if they're doing a task, they're doing it for both, they're not doubling that task,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I believe we pay postage, right?
We pay for the postage, right? We pay the postage, we pay the processing of the
We
bill.
got the postage in here at 18,500.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out.
Data processing, software upgrade, we pay our percentage of the software.
Yeah, then this is where the software, you know, the treasurer is including it in his, but so is the town administrator. So it's gonna come to, you know, how the meeting goes with them to find out, you know, how they think it should be allocated.
So back to the postage, that postage line is, I feel like it's a town-wide line. But you're saying that the water sewer department does not benefit from that, from postage that happens here at Town Hall?
Correct, because we pay for the postage for all our mailings and bills and.
Everything that
So I
goes
don't
out.
For the
understand what
bills, yes.
postage they would be paying that benefits.
The only
water sewer.
postage that may come off the postage meter here is for our regular monthly bills. What we pay. When we send, actually, a lot of that's electronic transfer now. So I don't know how much is actual
Time
postage.
paying invoices, though.
But,
Yeah,
you know,
like we get a bill and we pay it, you know.
when the bill goes, when we mail a bill out, we pay that postage ourselves. If we send you a water and sewer bill, we pay that postage. It doesn't come off the town's meter, it goes through that local business.
Yeah, I had some questions related to these expenses that are, excuse me, are included on the treasurer tab. Those have not been answered yet, so I will get answers on that. I'll ask about the software upgrade and the postage as well. Make sure that it makes sense to include these expenses.
Treasurer would have gave us which property still owed money, we could have eliminated the tax title.
That's what
$15,000.
yep. Oh, tax title, yes.
Okay, okay to move on, or you want to talk more about the treasurer?
Sure.
Okay. The town hall line is very similar setup as to what has historically been charged. So these are just common expenses that are, they're called town hall because they are associated with this complex.
Right.
And the 0.75% that's allocated there is based on square footage, I
Square footage of
believe.
the office, right?
Yeah. So I don't see any reason to change that, and it's gonna be a number that's very similar to it is how it is today. Other expenses, what's included there is the audit of the entire town audit of all the books, which does cover water sewer, as well as town reports, which does cover water sewer. The percentage was 11% prior. I actually do not know what that 11% represents. It actually shows up a few times in the current way that things are allocated. I'm defaulting to the budgetary methodology, which gets you the 10% for water and the 6.46 for sewer. So if that were to be used, that's a little bit of a savings on both sides. And then the hydrant rental, which I know is probably something that should be discussed tonight or some other time. I have the number the same for now, just because at this point, I don't know what else to do. So I need direction from someone or somewhere on that. What they historically do is they take last year's number and they increase it by 2.5%. And that's how they get to the next year's number. And I actually don't even know what the 2.5% represents. I forget what it represents. So that number just carries forward every year. I tried to do a little bit of digging to see if I could get some numbers to work with, and so far I have not gotten it.
Yeah, the,
George, how many hydrants do we have?
Around 310.
Do we know what they're saving by having fire protection?
fire protection is ISO rating, which is general insurance savings. But as was evident last year, just because something is outside the hydrant system doesn't mean the hydrant system covers it. You know, damn near drained our system to put out a fire.
I'm sure they did a number on it Monday.
No, it was actually very low water, from what I was told.
It went off the
It was a
10-inch
whole
main
lot.
and that was it. Down pretty quick.
It's pretty much well, I think it was an outside fire, wasn't it?
It was inside a bit, but a lot of the stuff was heavy timber stuff that was going.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the best way to deal with the hydrants, but one good fire can easily eat up $15,000. Easily.
It's not counting the brakes that we're gonna repair.
And then if there's a break due to a water hammer, and that was our concern last week, was, you know, we get a water hammer,
It's more than 15,000 right there.
that's a huge expense.
Okay.
In lost water and in repair cost.
Right.
So it's hard to quantify that. That's been
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a quick comment related to this?
Sure.
So I don't, my impression is that it's not related to what could happen. It's related to the service, or
yes.
the ability to suppress fires if it were to happen. And that's technically a service, like.
It is.
Does the town charge residents or commercial properties in town for fire service?
No,
Okay, but there are communities that do that.
sure.
It goes on either a monthly bill or a quarterly bill, and it's not because they had a fire. It's because they're in theory protected in case they have a fire. And that's a service that's provided, so it should be paid for, right? So to me, this is like kind of the same theory, that hydrants are available in case they're needed. And who's providing the water, who's providing access to those hydrants? It's the water department. So that's a service that should be paid for.
And those fires are being put out by treated water. So the chemicals and everything else that's used, the new treatment plant that we just built is processing that water to dump it on a fire. So there is a much added expense now with the loans and the interest and principal that's paid on that new treatment plant.
So I think to your point, the cost to provide that service has increased exponentially.
Exponentially, and that allocation in the indirects is not.
It's just
It's
probably
been-
just increased at
It's been around
2.5%.
15,000, I think, for the last 10 years.
Well, it
It's
should,
gone up a percentage, 2.5% every year, but it started off at like 10 and it's just slowly gained.
right. Right. So, yeah, my guess would be that the costs are, to provide that service would be higher now, but I don't know.
It's hard to,
Yeah,
how do you quantify that?
You have to look at comparable towns, the same type of hydrant system, our size, go from there, get a formula what they do.
Yeah, if
So
they
300
do anything.
hydrants.
You said there are towns that bill for the service, right?
well, I know towns that bill individual owners, like properties,
Yeah.
just like you bill for water usage,
Right.
those types of accounts.
Get a fire protection.
If they have sprinkler system, they get billed for fire protection because they have the ability to put out a fire if one happens. So that's what I was referring to, but I do know of one other community that has this hydrant rental thing that's similar to yours. And
Yeah, I don't think a lot of towns, I mean, unfortunately, this whole process has to happen this way. It's been acrimonious for years. There are reasons for it, that I'm not gonna go into now, but, it's sad that it has to be that way. There are other communities that there's no charge. There's no expenses that are passed from enterprise to general budget,
you talking about,
and they work together.
you talking about the form of indirect costs?
Right. There are other communities similar size that don't have an indirect cost. They don't
Yeah.
charge, they don't charge it in the town, the town and the indirect, and the enterprise work well together.
Yeah, but Mr. Chairman, while that may be true, I'm of the mind that there should be indirect costs for enterprise
Okay.
funds. Just the work that I do, I see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The theory being that there are things that benefit the water sewer department that you don't pay for directly.
Sure.
So it's a way of capturing those costs so that the water sewer department is responsible for those costs. It's a very common thing.
But the hydrant thing,
The hydrant thing may be
I
considered
don't know
uncommon.
how we can, I don't know how to quantify that.
But like, if you think about, so we just covered all these different departments and what they do or what they claim to do for water sewer, right? So if this hydrant rental to me is like kind of flipping it the other way, what does water do for the town? And if any of that can be quantified, then yeah, it's within your right or the town's right to include that. It's basically the same concept, it's just going in a different direction, right?
We gotta figure out the benefit the town gains from having the.
It's a difficult thing to do, but yes, that's basically the goal here. The one other community that I was referring to originally, I think they got away from this calculation, but they started with the number of hydrants, and they determined, I asked them, and I do not have an answer to this, I wish I did, but they determined a per hydrant cost that they could then multiply by the number of hydrants, and that was their number. And they used that for years. And then at some point in the very recent past, I think only because they were trying to make the budget work on the general fund side, that number got trimmed down. It was no longer based on the hydrants times the per hydrant number. It was just some rounder number to make the budget work. But they did originally start with a real calculation. It had a per hydrant cost, and I wish I knew how they came up with that number. But does anyone here know how the original, let's say it was 10,000 was calculated, or maybe it was just a number pulled out of thin air?
That was almost a number pulled out of the air, back when I remember I was in the department.
So it wasn't based on the
Wasn't
number of
based on any
hydrants?
true facts.
It wasn't pulled out of the air by the water department.
That may be true.
Yeah, I don't remember, I was on the board when actually, no, I wasn't.
No, you weren't.
No, I wasn't. That's more than 20 some odd years ago.
But to be honest with you, for that money, from a business standpoint, on a board, I would say I would eliminate it and stop offering that service. For $15,000, we're losing money left and right. So from a business standpoint, I would say shut all the hydrants off, don't use them for fire protection. Hydrants were originally put in water systems to maintain the distribution system so you can flush out the pipes so that you don't get sediment built up. So for the cost that it cost us for them using the hydrants, it far exceeds what we're getting for money. So from a business standpoint, I would say stop using them for fire protection. And the other benefit that you're not gonna be able to put a number on so much is the tax base on the commercial end is only available because they have water from the municipality to provide fire protection for those buildings. Without it, you're not gonna bring any commercial base in. So there's a huge benefit on the tax side that they're not capturing.
Yeah, and that could be an argument for considering to do fire protection charges to those different accounts.
Right, and the other part of that most people don't see is that the size of our mains is to be able to provide fire protection. So we
Size
can,
differently for that
we can
reason.
cut our costs significantly down
Construction
on
side.
water mains and construction side, way down, because you'd need less than half the size pipes that we have now.
Cut a 12-inch main down to a 4-inch main to provide water to homes for showers and.
I know this,
flushing
this
toilets.
isn't really like what we're probably supposed to be talking about, but has,
Right.
has the town or has this board ever talked about doing fire protection for these accounts that you're talking about right now?
So, I don't even know if we charge a sprinkler system charge. He's talking about sprinkler, not charging like individual houses, but.
No, well, not houses, anyone that has a
Anyone that
sprinkler
has-
system.
Right.
And/or that you've sized the pipes differently for.
We don't charge anything additional for any commercial or industrial,
No, he's talking about.
which would be
Like I have
places that are sprinkled.
I have a sprinkler fee. If somebody has a fire sprinkler system, we charge a fee for that,
Yeah,
for having that available.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I have that where I.
But that would be commercial and industrial. It's
Is it-
not
Mostly,
not
but you could
typically
have-
residential.
You
Is
could
it-
have residential.
Large, it's
Very- very-
large residential property.
Is it based on sizing or is it just one?
Size of the pipe.
Yeah. So that's, that's something that could be considered, and then that helps with the cost recovery that you're talking about, or,
Right, but I mean, the sizing of the pipes that I was referring to wouldn't just be the commercial base for fire protection, that's for fire protection on the fire hydrants. We only have the size of pipes that we have in order to provide enough flow through a fire hydrant for fire protection. Otherwise, we could cut those down, you could cut a 12-inch main down to a 4 or 6-inch main. You won't have fire protection, but it would be plenty to service the residential.
right.
And then we'd waste far less water flushing a main out with a small main, because you have to get 3 to 5 CFM, or CFS per second, cubic feet per second of flow in order to get any sedimentation out. And the difference between a 4-inch pipe and a 12-inch pipe is huge. It's,
Yep.
a couple hundred gallons for a 4-inch, and it's probably like 1,300 or more for a 12-inch.
Back to that, every time you flush, you're taking treated water that we put chemical into to treat the water, so it's just, the cost is exponential.
But it's hard to put a number on that.
Yeah.
I think it's more than 15,000.
Well, just the,
I would,
we had last year, how much did it cost us?
It costs us
Water
about,
loss.
costs us about 25,000.
Last
One
year?
fire.
Yeah, on the Mason Adhesive fire, how many water main breaks did you have in that area? And you drained the entire tank.
The one on Dresser Hill Road was the big one right there, coming down the hill.
But probably, I mean, if you had for last year, between all the money we spent because of it, it's gotta be
Far
25,
far exceeds
$40,000.
15,000.
I think that's my point.
And that was for a fire that was outside the water district.
Yeah.
So they say
Way
it's not on the
outside.
water district, they shouldn't have to pay, but they take
That was
water from the
way
water
outside
district
the
and
water
bring it out
district.
there.
and there's no recouping for that water, right?
No,
The water or the repairs we had to do because they just drained everything.
So that's back to my earlier point. I think the cost of providing that service, yeah, you can't account for what might happen and what might break, but if this, it's a business, you gotta factor that in somewhere.
and just to be clear, because I know somebody out there in internet land is going to take it and run with it. Just as a business, yes, it would be wise to say, we're gonna stop providing the service. I don't believe anybody on this board is even considering not providing fire protection. I mean, it is what it is. It's just how do we quantify it? And if it were a purely business decision, we might do it. But
It's not.
there's a lot more to it than just the business. So, just so that nobody out there in camera land decides to run with, oh, Dudley Water's gonna shut off fire protection. No, we're not.
How do you spell your last name?
No, I mean, that's, I can see social media now already, but
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we should be, about time we get compensated for
Right.
what we do provide.
Right. Absolutely.
Because there's only 2,600 people in town paying for that out of what, 10,000?
Right. That's true.
So could that be a methodology to calculate it, like how many residents are benefiting from this versus how many are actually paying for this service? I don't know how you would.
Well, yeah,
do
but
that.
you have to come up with a value to the service first.
Right.
And that's, I mean, how do you quantify?
Those that are paying for it would still benefit from it, right?
Right.
In
Oh, yeah.
theory, yeah.
But you have the,
There is a
7,
benefit.
8,000 that are not paying for it that benefit from it.
Right. And they benefit in it, they benefit from the fact that it provides fire protection for commercial and industrial that wouldn't otherwise be there if they weren't able to have fire protection. So, yeah, there's, that's something we're gonna have to
In your
get
opinion,
on
how would
quick.
you approach this to get a methodology to quantify it, knowing what you heard from us now?
At this point, I'm not quite sure.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah,
That's not something you're gonna figure out in 10 seconds
No.
after hearing
but
this.
I mean, even so, I think I'd have to do some digging on what happens in other communities to see if I can find something comparable. I mean, nothing's popping into my head right now as to
Yeah.
a possible way to do this. I think if you just base it on the hydrants, like that is something that's sensible to me. Especially since I saw in this other community and it works for them. But we gotta come up, in order to do that, I feel like you gotta come up, you, me, whoever it is, all of us have to come up with a way to come up with the cost associated with providing that service per hydrant. Cause based on what the superintendent said, it sounds like we have the number of hydrants, which is great. But if we get a,
Did you say we had?
300, 310.
but if we come up with a way to put costs on that, which seems like kind of a difficult task,
Let's round off about $50 a hydrant right now.
that number seems low.
George, what's a replacement hydrant go for?
Are we talking installed?
A whole installed hydrant, you could be up to about $17,000, $18,000 just to leave
At
them.
13,500, that's
Right now, that's 50.
$4,185,000.
It's about 50, it's about, we're getting just about $50 a hydrant. Round numbers.
And replacements, 1,500?
15,000.
15,000, about 15,000. When you talk about digging, buying the hydrant, digging
If
it.
you get into trouble and you end up breaking something as you're doing that, now you've added to that cost and it gets messy.
Yep, it does. Okay,
That's a
we can kick this can around the room all night long, but it's something we're gonna have to really think about.
Before it goes to town meeting.
Before, yes, in the next week or two. And it just, I don't know how to quantify it. But, okay, so we've gone through all of the numbers.
Yeah, and then you can see there that we total them up right there at the bottom. So you can see how, if you add up all the allocations that are above it, the numbers are not that much, they're similar to, but it's slightly higher than what the last allocation was, which was FY '24. That's what the comparison is.
Okay, so you see the allocation, but how does, I don't understand how the allocation for a much smaller department is higher. The sewer allocation's higher than the water allocation.
It doesn't have the,
How
doesn't have the
does that
benefit,
happen?
well, it doesn't have the benefit of the hydrant rental, which brings it down a little bit.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
the hydrant rental,
Hydrant rental's water only, right?
water only, right?
Yeah. So if you were to remove that, then it goes up to about 125,000 on the water side. So it would be a little bit higher. But that is a good point, Mr. Chairman.
And when you consider that, another thing that came to my mind, when you consider that, using that straight budgetary method, more than 50% of our sewer budget is to pay for processing in Webster. Town services have nothing to do with that expense at all.
We're paying a portion of that, as you know. For Webster, we pay for, you know, parts of their town administrator, their board, their treasurer, all that, in part of the sewer.
That's in our budget, but so if you take a straight budgetary, that has absolutely no bearing on.
Just a number
On the
that-
town's expenses.
Good point, Mr. Chairman.
Except for the fact that
It's a bill.
somebody, whether it's I don't think it's a paper check anymore, I think it's a digital transfer, which basically costs nothing. Somebody has to hit a button, and it's done. But, yeah, there is some processing to it financially, but that's 700, 800,000 out
It's
of,
almost 900,000.
almost 900,000 out of,
It's 47% of your budget.
okay. Well, that's changed then, because it was, at one point, Webster Processing was about 60% of the sewer budget.
Our water budget went up significantly.
And our water budget went up significantly because of debt
So-
to pay for
$10 million treatment.
a treatment plant that,
So, Mr. Chairman, if you were to remove that, I'm just throwing it out there, the budgetary methodology shifts from that 6.46% down to 3.4%.
in all of this, there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
And those are wrinkles that haven't been considered, so.
No, and that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, there is some work that's done, right? So you gotta pay bills. But maybe that's it from the town side, right?
Okay. Oh,
Appreciate you doing all the work in such a short time.
yeah, and I know I personally wouldn't even consider trying to make a decision tonight on.
No,
on
and
any of this.
I'm not expecting one of you.
Simply because we just,
I'll be honest with you, Mr. Chairman, if we go back like 2 weeks, I didn't think I'd be before you this evening, because I didn't feel like we were far enough along. And then, once I heard a little bit more about those potential town meeting plans,
I didn't know that those town meeting plans were in existence.
I didn't either, but I also let's not suggest that that's definite, because I don't know if it's definite.
Okay.
I'll find out on Friday when I ask the town administrator. But that helped kind of move things along. So the last 2 weeks or so have been pretty busy trying to move this forward. And even though I don't have a draft or final numbers for you this evening, I figured it was still worthwhile to come before you and at least update you on where we were. And I feel like, we're pretty far along, but clearly we have some decisions that still need to be made. So I would expect, assuming there's interest in a decision soon, that I'd be before you next month, but I guess I'll figure that out with Jen to see if I make it on the
You know,
agenda.
If we have to pull a special meeting together, we can. But I guess there needs to be some conversations with our administrative assistant and with the town administrators.
Yeah. Yeah, and I plan to speak to both of them about those things.
Okay, cool. Anybody have anything else? Okay, anything
Alright.
else? Yeah, okay,
Oh, no, I'm good,
good.
unless you
Well,
want to talk about
thank you
anything
for the
else.
report.
Yeah, no.
All right, thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Okay, let's see, number 6, I don't think there's anything much with that. The treatment plant updates, I mean, everything's running.
Other than some issues with some chlorine pumps that we got them replaced, so.
We talked about that last month, and everything seems to be, from conversations with Brian, everything seems to be going well down there.
Except for the alarm issues that are still being
Yeah,
worked on.
they're still working on straightening out all the
Chlorine
alarms.
pumps at the state, at the new building?
Yeah, they changed them. We signed a change order for that a while back. Tie and bond correspondence, I know, I just got an email, we just got an email this morning that they want to set up a meeting for some meetings for next Thursday to talk about lead and copper and change orders with, trying to close out the GEG project, and there was a couple of other things in there. But trying to set something up for next Thursday morning. And that'll be through Jen and George. There hasn't been much else from Ty and Bond, I believe, recently. Next Monday, there is a meeting, joint meeting being set up with the Board of Selectmen. I believe everybody should have seen the emails that have gone around about it. The DEP representatives are going to be in town to talk to the community as a whole about PFAS and its effects on public water and I believe private wells. So they've set up a meeting. The town administrator's office is posting it as a meeting for the selectmen, for the Board of Health, and for the Water and Sewer Commission. So that the boards can all be here to answer questions, to hear the information from DEP, to answer any potential questions and so on. So that meeting is posted for next Monday night, September 9th, and for anybody who can make it, and that'll be at 6:30 here in this room. There's supposed to be some splash pad updates coming. There was some more work. They did get some numbers on that, but they haven't gotten to our office yet. Number 9, the budget. All of this paper that's sitting here, to go through this stack of reports that Jen put together. First in your pile is the budget. Should be somewhere around 20%, between 15 and 20% based on the salary line items. For the most part, everything looks good. The retirement line item is going to be off because those numbers from the treasurer collector were bad at budget time, so went over. Everything else seems to be pretty much in line. Any questions on the budget? First page is receivables, what was received in the last month. And the next report is receivables for the month of August. For the month of August, 8/7 to 8/28. Got a complete list of receivables. And then there's a lien to real estate report. It's just a general report. There are 3 copies, she only printed 3 copies because it's 26 pages long, of the actual liens to real estate for the last year. They all happened on 12/11/2023. So that's a list of what bills were liened. Then there's also an aging report. That's the eye chart. Yeah, that's an eye chart. I can't even read that with these glasses.
I can read it.
Holy cow.
Yeah. You got a copy
I
there
just
too. And then
figured from away I'd see it.
there's also a report here for the one-liner report, and that's the outstanding, what is outstanding for every user, every account so far at this current point. That's hard to judge based on, we just had a billing cycle, so there's going to be a lot of outstanding, but And you see, I can see some of them, the 68 cents, 69 cents. You know, there's some 9 cents. There's some of them that are very, very small, and there's some of them that aren't.
Do you know if she can run this report, we can set a dollar value?
What's
So,
that?
like, set it to like $50, we can see.
Oh, yeah,
$50 a month.
she probably can. That would be, I'm sure,
Yeah, 'cause there's a lot of like.
I'm sure she will answer that question.
I'm sure she's watching us.
Oh, I'm sure she's not. If I were on vacation, I certainly wouldn't be watching this.
I
But-
like to think she is.
But
This is riveting entertainment.
she will hear it. It is being recorded for YouTube, and also for, it's being recorded with a voice recorder, so she will get it. So there's all those are the reports that had been requested last month, so she pulled them together. Anybody have any comments or questions or concerns about them?
Have we started looking at doing shut-off sheds?
We have not, and that is the next line item on the budget. We have not. That is a procedure. We do have a procedure in place. It's old, dated, but there is a procedure in place. And it hasn't been used in many years because we weren't provided with the information. We have it now because Jen can go in and get it herself. The held hostage situation that we were in is no longer the case.
I just think that we could eliminate our portion of liens, or whatever that fee was that he was charging us, $15,000.
Well, $15,000 for leaning. A lot of that could be eliminated simply by initiating collection. Yeah, with a can of spray paint.
Yeah,
You know, a spray painted X in the front of the, in the street in front of a house.
so it would be a twofold. We'd eliminate that cost for the treasurer collector, and we would increase our revenue by fees from shut-off.
From one of the reports, I believe, that leaned report, which is, I don't have a copy of it in front of me. Which one, flip it over to the last page. $150,000. $135,000 is principal, $14,000 is interest. The $150,000 of water and sewer is currently liened to real estate, which
I think when I look back, it
doesn't get paid until the real estate bill gets paid.
Right, and I think the last ones I looked at, the last 2 years, were like 175 a year.
Mhm.
So,
So we're standing significantly, that's $150,000, that's 5% of our budget. For water, significantly more for sewer. It's probably about 5% of sewer as well.
but you're looking at it as 5%, just that we haven't collected, but
Right,
it's also revenue that we're losing
yes,
on the shut-off side,
right.
because there's a fee associated with that we could be collecting.
So, we'll, I think it might be good, now that summer's over, start having some, second meetings to talk strictly about policy. Developing these policies, so that we're not, running super late. Try to, all of, 11 and 12 is all, indirect costs, we just talked about that significantly. The old business stuff, they're there, they've been there for months because they just keep getting pushed off, but we need to get it cleaned up. Any questions on any of that? Or any suggestions?
Do we copy of the shut-off policy we can distribute?
Yeah, we can have Jen send that out when she gets back. She'll be back in the office on Monday.
That's one that we're looking at updating.
Yes, it was one of the ones that was on the list to be updated. It is, and it's about a 90-day policy, a 90-day process. It's a significant amount of time, with notices being sent out and door tags being placed, and but that needs to be addressed. Okay. Anybody see anything in old business that they want to speak to?
I got one, vehicle upgrades, there is a truck coming down the pipeline. It's a Explorer. This will be for Brian. It's 2018, about 50,000 miles. It'll be those two trucks in trade. He can only do it for $7,000 in cash. Can't do it for 5. So,
The 2 trucks plus $7,000?
yeah, but they have to bring that dump truck up to DOT standards too to sell it. And it's got some work that has to be done on it. It's a 2003, so and you're not gonna,
How much is the vehicle?
I haven't got the particulars on the cost factors of the vehicle, but I can't get anything close to anything like that. They're probably about $35,000, 30 to 35.
What year?
2018. It's a Explorer. And it's got I guess it's fully loaded with stuff, so the pull-down seats, they put equipment in the back and all that stuff, so.
How much do you think the vehicle's costing us?
I don't have a figure yet on it, it's coming down the pipeline now. They're taking it in trade on on a newer vehicle, so he just told me about it now. I don't have any particulars.
Any more on that?
Did you get 3 prices for trading in?
Well, I don't have anything to trade with. Nobody has a vehicle that they're willing to trade with. This is Place Motors, the only one I can get some reaction from, that even wants those things. So it's really nothing there. What's the?
Okay, I got a text message from someone the other day about someone who might potentially be interested in that dump truck, if it is placed out to bid.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to avoid, because that brings us nothing back to replace it again for a
We
newer
don't need to
vehicle.
replace the dump truck. The dump
No,
truck-
I mean, I'm saying it's for a newer vehicle to trade. Once that's traded and gone, it's gone. I have no value for a trade-in.
But you're looking for a trade-in vehicle, and you're paying retail price as opposed to going through a state bid list that you would get municipal pricing, which is far less than the average person could go into a.
I'm only looking
dealership
for a
and
used
get.
vehicle to replace, so I don't have to go out and try to get a whole new vehicle at a 6-month period, because this is just in cash, a cash deal. Just to use the money we have in the account and pay cash. Now I've got a vehicle. Now I've got a runaround vehicle.
Just trading in the 2007 F-150
And the dump truck.
dump truck.
Well, and the F-150's rusted everywhere, so.
Okay,
George, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just looked up car guru for a 2018 Ford Ranger,
No.
Ford Explorer. It's like 21,000.
How many miles on it?
It's an average, so it could be more or less. So, say it's 24,000, and we're giving them $7,000, and we're only getting $14,000 off because of the 2 vehicles.
You're not gonna get, I'm not getting much for the dump truck, I tell you that right now, maybe 12 grand or less. And the other truck's worth about 1,000, if that. So I'm not getting that much, and they gotta put money into fixing that dump truck.
Well, why wouldn't you put it out to bid? And you don't have to worry about fixing it or anything. You put it out to bid, everybody bids on it. If you don't get the dollar value you're looking for, you just throw out the bids.
But because I can't use that money in cash coming back to us, it has to go back in the general fund.
No, that
Or
doesn't
not,
go into
retained
the general
earnings.
fund, it goes into our funds.
Yeah, retained earnings.
okay,
That's town meeting now, that's a whole, by that time, I'm back to square one. There's no, I'm using up a truck for mileage that shouldn't be doing it, and I've gained nowhere. I might as well just go for a brand-new truck in 6 months. But at that time, the other truck will need replacing, because it just travels too much.
Okay,
This is what I'm trying to do, is get a runner vehicle that's a runner truck for him. He does too much traveling, too much running around. And we need it. We need to have it done. There's no other way to answer alarms and stuff.
How many
And-
vehicles do we have?
Two pickup trucks and the one that Brian has right now.
so you have 3 trucks.
Yeah, with the little pickup truck would be gone and the dump truck would be gone.
So you'd have a net loss of 1 vehicle.
Yeah.
No, because we have the dump truck. The dump truck dump truck's already been replaced,
Right, so it'd be a wash.
so it'd be a wash.
Right.
Yeah, the pickup would be gone. That would be,
Yeah.
That was my concern before, was
Yeah,
we're increasing our fleet for no reason. But,
But in this scenario, we're not, it's just
yes,
getting rid of 2 aged-out vehicles.
and getting another one. All right. Okay, there's some discussion that has to be had on that, but I don't want to do it on camera. So,
I think we need to find out what they're both worth on the open
But like I
market.
said, there are people that want to bid on it, and they're concerned that it's gonna go away without being bid. There's some
Maybe if we can
concerns.
get more for it, George, we can get them a better vehicle, it's gonna last longer.
but yeah, I'm gonna have to go through appropriations and the capital improvement and everything else to go out that route. You're talking six months more of driving that little truck, his truck. He's over 50,000 now and climbing. I mean,
Over 50,000, you're worried he's gonna wear out that truck in 6 months and it's at 50,000, but you wanna buy another one with 50,000, so that means it'll.
he's
be
going
around.
past 50,000 now, and it's a work truck with a heavy load going all over. He's got a tailgate on it, a lift gate on it. So it has tools in it. It's equipped with tools and stuff. But wears the truck out double. Well,
Okay, superintendent's report,
if you have any questions, it's pretty
it
straightforward.
was sent out.
Where do we stand on sewer project?
They're on it now. They're starting it.
Oh, that's right, that's what he's supposed
It's being monitored and,
I hope.
by the sewer department. One man on the sewer monitors that.
Are we charging them?
Who we charging? It's a grant program. It's a grant
But who's the sewer pipe going in for?
for Dudley, the town of Dudley.
So are we charging the town for the oversight of that going in?
No,
Get grant money, it'll come off the grant money, right?
it's grant money for the town of Dudley for a free project, basically. And our protocol calls for somebody to be there to watch over any type of stuff being put in our roads with our sewer mains or water mains.
So it's costing us money for a town project.
It's not costing, it costs us, he's not there every day of the week. He's there probably 4 days out of the week. They'll pave on the Fridays. So he's there
4
for
out of the 5 days he's there.
roughly 4 out of 5 days he's there.
So we,
I mean, I told you before, you wanna pull him off? I'll pull him off, but let's not start Charlton Road again. Because Charlton Road cost us $6,000 because of a mistake made, because nobody was there to watch what they were doing. So I'm fine with
I
that.
don't have a problem him being there, I think we gotta get compensated though.
I don't know where you're gonna compensate from. What am I gonna tell him? Where are you gonna compensate from? Take it away from something else on the project? For him to be there on
Is
a
the
project?
grant covering the entire project?
Yeah,
That's 100% paid for
yes,
by grant?
yes.
Was the sewer extension permit done?
Everything, whatever, they handled everything. I went in on the initial meetings and stuff to get it started, and they handled it. Time Bond handled everything.
But we have fees. If somebody comes in and says, I want to extend the sewer to do this project, we have a fee for a sewer extension, don't we?
We have some fees, but I mean, you're gonna add that to it now and take the same thing. You're doing the same thing, taking money from a grant project.
But why weren't these fees brought up before? That's what, we have a fee structure. They weren't brought up.
I think
They weren't brought up in the planning process for this thing.
Well, I think part of the problem is this project wasn't brought in front of this
So the
board.
board hasn't seen anything. Every house that connects, every business that connects, when the mill down here wanted to connect for expansion on their project,
We-
it comes before the board, we either approve it or deny it, and we impose all the fees that are associated with it at that time. We haven't seen anything on this project. From what I heard, the sewer's going in next to another sewer, so you're leaving the old sewer, now we're doubling the amount of I that's gonna be in that area. It's just, this is what we're trying to avoid. The whole interceptor is costing how much? 2 million?
That,
Because of
that
I&I.
project down there is a nightmare to start. We can't connect
Exactly,
into
so
it.
it should have been done correctly.
Well, it is being done correctly, but it can't just tap in everybody right now. It's gonna take time. They're gonna have to tap in as you go.
And who's gonna pay for it?
That'll be up to the customers to tap in, when they have to tap in.
But that should have all been swapped over as part of the project.
So they're putting a new sewer line in and they're not using it?
They're not gonna tap all the houses.
They're gonna use it, but they're not tapping every house that has underground to the garage, or under the porch, or under the this or that. It's gonna be done in segments, where the owners of the property are gonna have to pay to have it tapped
Who's
in.
gonna enforce they're gonna have to pay?
Who's gonna what?
Enforce that they're gonna actually,
The nature of the beast is gonna enforce it. If they have to tap in, they're gonna have to tap in. They can't tap in anything else.
but they already get it, right?
For now,
They
yeah,
tapped into the old main.
but there will be problems coming down the pike.
What
and
will
they-
force them to get off the old main and onto the new main, and that they're gonna pay for it?
They're not doing it.
They're
Nobody.
not. That's, this is,
That should have been included.
again, another argument that we're gonna have to have. But I guess in the last month, why are we paying contractors to come in and dig for our water mains?
Because I have no staff. I have nobody to operate equipment. I have nobody at all. And nobody gets in the hole. I have to sometimes get in the hole, and it's even worse now. And it takes too long to have one tractor jumping back and forth to bring loads back from 4 miles away. We still took us till almost midnight with that break. And we had the big dump truck loading to help us along. And it took us that long. You saw yourself how deep that holes are and how small that area is. I mean, you know, we have to find a way to cut back on the time. It takes too long. The guys get worn out and trouble starts happening.
But if you're subcontracting the excavation, why aren't you just paying another $125 an hour to have them bring a dump truck and do the whole project?
You do the whole thing.
You could sell the big dump truck, sell the little dump truck, sell the backhoe. You know how much that dump truck costs? You know how many excavations we could sub out for
Well,
that expense?
if everybody wants to come help us out, then we'll be able to do that. But I've got a guy out, another guy that can't get in the hole, he's hurt. And another guy that's 60-something years old, he can't do anything. So you tell me. The equipment's not the problem, it's the manpower.
Okay, and then the other thing was well 3.
Just put a permit in there to get to use that as a backup well. They still gotta skater it and approve it and all that.
We put in well 7 in order to replace this, and now we're gonna take it and use it?
Only as an emergency well source.
But, okay, so we're spending an awful lot of money on it, to do all of what's gonna need to be done. Has it been placed?
Well 7 went down twice already.
Did it
If
go
well
out?
7 goes down, we have no water supply.
Do we go out to bid?
Bid for what? To put a submersible pump in? He's
All
the,
the other work that's gonna have to be done.
what other work has to be done? What are you talking, you mean the skater? Yeah, that's done by one man that we have for our work for skater. He's doing that work. The same guy that's gonna do the sewer meter.
And what's going on with the road opening permits?
They took care of it.
Did they?
As far as I know, they took care of it.
Did we get reimbursed?
I don't know about that.
Well, that's the question. I saw the report for the last 3 years of road opening permits. There are 4 on the list. All 4 of them are for Dudley Water and Sewer. There's not a single one in there for anyone else that's opened a road in the town of Dudley in the last 3 years.
We haven't paid a road opening permit ourselves either.
Oh, yes, we certainly did.
But who? Who wrote a check?
$1,200.
Who wrote a check to it?
We did.
You told me to squash it, and I did. I don't know what that check went out, or who took that, who
We
sent that
paid,
check out.
we signed a voucher for it. Or we have to reimburse that contractor because that contractor couldn't drill the soil borings without getting a road opening permit.
I brought that right to the town administrator.
$1,200 that they paid. So we have to reimburse them. If we haven't already, they're gonna be screaming because it's been a couple of months now.
Pretty sure we signed that.
I thought we already signed it.
Question is, did we get reimbursed in the town?
And that's the question. All of the work that was done by National Grid for all those gas lines, not a single road opening permit. Not one. But yet they're gonna hammer us for them? That's BS. They're charging their own taxpayers to improve the system. But yet they're not charging charging a utility contractor. That's bull.
I don't even know who's controlling that now. All I know is I gave,
Right on the other side of this wall.
well, I gave the other side of that wall, the last one. And said,
Okay.
you guys take care of this. This is for
All right.
town.
Anything else on the superintendent's report?
No.
You know, the well 3 is not just gonna be a backup, right? It's gonna be sampling every month,
Yep,
all the parameters.
yep.
So what's gone down with the well that,
Well, 7 has failed twice. One was due to a error, an operator error, and the other one was due to its own problem. We were lucky enough to get a part for it, ran up and got it, was back in service within 3 days.
so what failed?
Uh,
Pump itself?
The pump itself failed, yeah. One was the VFD causing it.
So you don't think it's cheaper to have a spare VFD and a spare pump?
I already have spare pumps for that if I need it now, but thing is, I need time, and sometimes they're not available to put in the new well or replacement well. Takes time. If I'm in the middle of any type of need of water, I can't survive on Station 6 and Station 8. I have to have well 7.
Anything else?
Not to beat a dead horse, George, but can you get us a breakdown of the cost, what it's gonna cost us to have well 3 as a backup? Like, what's it gonna cost us a year to keep that as a backup, just in case?
Cost of sampling, cost of testing, anything that's maintenance-wise, but that's part of the thing with wells.
Okay, get the number, if you could pull the numbers together.
Curious, I mean, is it $100 a year, is it $5,000 a year?
Thousands.
Is it, it's,
It's thousands. PFAS sampling, VOC sampling, SOC sampling, bacteria sampling, nitrate, everything we test for.
and I'm not to cut you short, George, if we need it, then, okay, we're gonna bite the bullet, but a lot of things we need.
Do you have an estimate on how much it's gonna cost to have this set up? Between the SCADA and everything else, that's integration and everything, I bet you're gonna be 6 figures before this is tied in correctly. And has anyone done a hydraulic analysis as to adding the extra pressure from that pump?
That's only gonna run by itself. It will not run with another one with it. 7 and 3 will not run together. It's for added support in an emergency. We don't have an added support. That comes off the same aquifer as 3 does, which gives it a lot of water supply. So when summer comes and that pump goes, and I can't get a replacement pump or fix it in a week's time, I'm out of water. pure and simple. Doesn't matter about the other pump, the other wells. They can't handle it.
Is it the same pump that's in 7?
Yeah, they're all integrated so that we can replace them no matter what.
Gallon per minute and pressures wise?
Yeah, they're
Same,
basically gonna be the same, even, you know, I mean, it's a little bit, it has to be a little small because of the sleeve, but it's still enough to take care of our needs than what we have to pump.
Okay. Anything else on the superintendent's report? There is no public, so board comments?
Just a question, can we start just ballpark and figure, because with the indirects getting as high as they are, would we be looking to get our own facility somewhere? Trying to save money that way if it's feasible? That number isn't going down
You
with,
mean to go to a water district?
yeah,
You're approaching a number to make it feasible.
well, that's my question with, you know, because, you know, with it, there's more than just packing up our desk and moving out, there's other costs involved. Whether we
All the building,
Put a building up or,
Well, we have buildings. But there's you have to get bonded, so we have to do the collections. There's a little bit of work there, but with the number that it's costing you for indirects, you're getting close to,
Even,
Same.
what would be the, would there be any savings to taking the collections up ourselves? We collect in our own, you know, you pay your water sewer bill, you pay it at the water sewer office.
I mean, I think we should take over the billing. We're already doing the billing. You're doing the meter reading, which goes into the billing software, which we pay for. There's a dozen companies out there that you can just send that file to right out of the billing software, and they'll print stuff, mail, everything.
We're paying,
You're already paying for that anyway.
we're paying for it already anyways.
but it's the collection part that we have to get bonded. I mean, I think it's an act of Congress for us to be able to take the bills.
Well, to go to a water district, it's an act of Congress.
Right.
You have to go through and get,
But even just taking over the billing and do the billing and collecting right out of our own office.
well, in my opinion, they're looking for a dollar amount, and they're gonna make the numbers work to get to that dollar amount. So if you take away the billing, they'll just add it to something else. I just ran
But
those
if we-
numbers, and it's a 4% and a 6% increase based on that. That's basically what they were looking for in the first place. So they took a whole bunch of numbers off, and then they just added to another point.
But is it feasible to actually leave the town hall?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
With the numbers from this indirect, these numbers that they're coming up with, it's very close to what it would
That's
be. And to be honest,
$230,000 a year.
and then
Could almost rent an
we
office
could
for
charge additional fees from the other side, and we would be separate from the town, so that fire protection, you know, we would establish that. And if they don't wanna pay whatever we establish, then they're not allowed to use it. So, like I said, you're close to that.
I don't see that number going down at all.
No,
No, like I said, they're just gonna shift it around. They got a dollar amount they want, and they're gonna get to it one way or another.
As for we gotta do something on ourselves about the hydrants, what we're gonna charge.
mhm.
So whether we look to see who else is charging, how are they charging?
How many miles of pipe do you have? Miles of water main.
Probably about 50-something.
So I mean, overall, the water department's probably the biggest asset in town.
Right.
A lot of times when you establish the fees, you take your total assets, you take that number and divide it out.
Had an asset study done, so we have that report.
So the asset management plan that we just did will give us all of what the actual assets are in town.
See what I can find from the report myself. It may have to wait till next week, but if I can't find it, to talk to Jen. She knows where everything is in there.
If you got roughly 50 miles of pipe, that's $100 million just in pipe in the ground. Not counting the hydrants. Hydrants, like I said, I think we had 4 million in hydrants. Buildings, treatment plant, wells, pump stations. Like I said, it's the biggest asset in town. So, and all of that is calculated into being able to provide the water through those hydrants.
Okay, well, we've got a couple of weeks to pull that together.
Jen's gonna be busy.
Well, we are. We're gonna have to do some work. Any other comments from board members?
Yeah, quiet over there. Taking it all in.
Okay. So number 15, somebody wants to read that off? Actually, yeah,
16.
Oh, 16, yeah, okay. I've got the unamended, unrevised version with just pen and ink written in. So we'll have our clerk read that.
16,
Yeah,
adjourn into executive session, MGL.
chapter 30A.
Chapter 30A, section 21, number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, litigation, if any open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and will not return to open session.
Okay,
Second.
motion's been made and seconded.
So
It
for-
requires a roll call vote.
If we're not returning to open session, are we adjourning the meeting prior?
We would, yeah, well, this adjourns the public meeting, and then
Yeah, it's adjourned into executive session.
we adjourn into executive session, and then the executive session is a separate meeting. Okay, so roll call vote.
Tom Pointer, aye.
We have to call.
Sean Bose, aye.
Justin Dolan, aye.
Bump Sullivan, aye.
Scott Zukowski, aye.